This episode of YXE Underground is supported by RBC Dominion Securities in North Battleford. If you are looking for someone to manage your money and investments, Rob Romvey and his team at RBC Dominion Securities should be your first choice.
I love, one of my favorite things to do is talking about words and asking students, like, how would you say this in your language? And because we have so many different languages, it's really, really fun. Everyone tries everyone else's words, and it's a great time. So yeah, it's a good team building just to have everyone have a voice. It's great.
Hello, I'm Eric Anderson. The voice you just heard belongs to Saskatoon teacher Megan Chan. Megan, along with fellow teacher Laura Jorgenson, are the featured guests in Season 7, Episode 5 of YXE Underground. For students arriving in Saskatoon with very little knowledge of the English language, one of the first people they will meet in school is an English as an additional language teacher. These teachers not only guide students on their journey through the language, but as I discovered in this episode, they provide a safe and nurturing space for students who have been through a lot in their young lives. You are going to meet two incredible EAL teachers in this episode of YXE Underground. Megan Chan and Laura Jorgenson share many things in common. They are passionate about teaching the English language in the Saskatoon Public School Division. They work hard to create a classroom where newcomer and refugee students feel secure and supported, and they both find their work as EAL teachers incredibly rewarding. Megan teaches elementary students at WP Bate School, and Laura teaches high school EAL classes at Tommy Douglas Collegiate. Together, I think they give you a clear picture of the challenges EAL teachers face as Saskatoon continues to become a more diverse community and school populations continue to rise, and they explain why their jobs are so fulfilling. Let's start with Megan Chan, who grew up here in Saskatoon and very early on in her teaching career knew there would be a need for EAL teachers in our province. Megan teaches at WP Bate School, an elementary school in Saskatoon's Meadow Green neighborhood where more than 300 kindergarten to grade 8 students attend. She met me at the front doors on what was a very busy first day back to school following Christmas holidays, and we sat down at one of the 3 circular tables in her classroom. I came into this conversation wanting to ask a lot of questions to Megan about how she goes about teaching English to the students, and you'll hear some of those questions. What I realized, though, thanks to Megan, is that being an EAL teacher is so much more than just teaching the ABCs and proper grammar to students. It's caring for them as individuals. I started our conversation by asking Megan if she could describe her classroom to listeners.
I am very lucky to have a full classroom. I'll say that right now. Sometimes we're in smaller spaces, so my classroom is set up with a few different zones. I have a reading area with lots and lots of books at different levels. We have 3 round tables. We have a projector, which is lovely. Lots of things up at the wall to describe numbers in visual representation. We've got visuals from our classroom learning up around as well. And we really try and make sure that our environments are safe feeling, like a warm environment when you walk in.
Ooh, why is that important?
I think just having a place for students to come and kind of relax and feel ready to engage, I think is really important. So we start with like a soft landing in my class, which basically means they come in and they're not doing instruction right away. They're doing something independent. And that just gives them that quiet start to kind of come in. I can meet them where they're at, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Yeah. I might ask you, I want to ask you some logistical questions first, because I'm so curious how this works. So, because back in my day as a teacher, like I in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I might have a class of 25 kids and there might be 2 or 3 students at the high school level that might need some help, but they're integrated in the class. But how does it work for you, Megan, at the elementary level? do kids come here specifically to see you then?
Yes, so I work in a small group model. So the students come in small groups of about 4 to 6 students. They'll come for 50 minutes at a time, so they are being pulled out of class. We make sure that they're not being pulled out of like phys ed or music or things that would be to their interest. They wouldn't like coming if we did that. And I also do push in sometimes, so I will go into classrooms and support as well. So I try and do a blended model where I can, and depending on the needs. So students, depending on their language proficiency, will come between 2 to 4 times a week for classes. It just depends on age, grade, and proficiency.
Okay, so on the proficiency front, could a student be in grade 2 but be in a group with like grade 4 students depending on the language skills, or how does that work?
I try and be very close with grade-alike peers. So grades 6, 7, and 8s are okay together. Grade 1 and 2s are great together. 3, 4, 5 sometimes is okay. But yes, we try and make sure that age and proficiency are kind of more matched.
Okay. Yeah. So when a group comes here, can we focus on grades 1 and 2? Because I'm so curious about that, because they're so young, and I just remember when I would have to like substitute teach at that level. Gosh, I struggled with it. So I'm so curious, like how, and they had, they were born in Canada, they had the language skills, but this is completely different. So when your grade 1 and 2 kiddos come in, what's the 50 minutes like?
Okay, well, I'll preface this by saying that I have time and ability to take grade 1 and 2s at my school. That might not be the case at all schools. So I'll just put that out there, that typically we start at grade 3, but we do have a few refugees at our school at grade 1 and 2. So those are my priority here, to take them. So for grades 1 and 2, when they come, we often start with a game or some sort of bridging activity, but we do change it up about every 10 minutes. I like to lead a lot with literacy and books, so I'll use a book to kind of jump off for our vocabulary learning. So we were working with the Mitten in December, and we were learning how to retell that story using pictures. And that was a really great vocabulary building activity for them.
Okay. So what would that sound like? I don't know. Do you have the book here?
I do. Yeah. It's over here. So just to kind of show what we do,
Okay.
I'll read the real story probably about 2 or 3 times, and I'll either read it out loud or we'll look at it on a recording on YouTube or something like that.
Okay.
And then what we'll do is we'll take the story and we'll break it into a storyboard. And then with that, we'll add just keywords to help them retell. And then we do that as a group.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why is this beneficial? How, and I guess how does it work? How does it develop the skills?
So a storyboard helps students see the sequencing part of language, that when we are storytellers, we need to sequence the story in an order. And so when we have a storyboard, it's visual input, which is really, really important when we're learning language, is to have visual along with writing, because reading and writing are the last skills to develop, or speaking and listening are the first skills to develop when we're learning. So we need some visual support when we're starting to look at learning some words.
Thank you for explaining that, because my mind right away went to like, well, we've got to get to the reading and writing, but that comes last then.
Well, it all works in tandem, but those skills take longer to develop when we're starting to learn language. So it's important to do everything at the same time. But I think when we're talking about having students retell and be a bit more independent, we need to have some visual input to support that vocabulary.
Okay. How do you know if it's clicking with the students?
I think sometimes it takes a bit of time, giving them that time and space in the classroom. Maybe they'll retell 1 or 2 things on their own. After a few months, they'll start to just randomly say things. You're like, where did that come from? So sometimes it's not immediately accessible. Sometimes they sit with something for a while before they're ready to say anything. So I guess, in a way, our assessment has to be ongoing and kind of multifaceted. It can't just be a one snapshot of time. It needs to be ongoing.
With that assessment then, because I like what you said, it's ongoing. Do parents and do families play a role in that? Not only the assessment, but just the development of the skills.
I think that can be quite complex to, I guess, discuss, because every family has a different relationship with education, depending on their own personal background and their own literacy levels. So in terms of maybe our expectations of parents and learning, I think just in that engagement in what is your child doing at school, I think that's the most important piece. I really try and focus a lot on what can we do at the school, and how can we bridge that communication with families, because we have so many different entry points into education that might not have been positive as well. So we're just trying to make sure that when the kids are here, that we're doing as much as we can, because homework isn't always an option for kids as well. And that reading at home, that literacy piece is sometimes complicated.
Okay.
Yeah.
You talked about expectations. How do you, again, this is maybe more of a logistical question, but how do you know what to expect from students? Like when you're meeting them for the first time, how do you know where they're at?
There's a few different things there. The first thing we do is a language assessment. So we have the Newcomer Student Center, which your podcast has talked about before, where we do a quick intake and assessment of the proficiency of students. When they arrive here, I also do some more testing. Sometimes that might include reading or writing. Sometimes that might include just a conversation. We use something called the Common Framework of Reference, and it's a scale of skills that we look at and determine where a student is at. So we have something called a rubric that we use for each student that's grade specific, and it goes from a 1.1, which is beginning proficiency, and it'll progress upwards from there in skill and complexity. Yeah.
When you do have students that are maybe closer to that 1.1 end of the scale, and you're just starting off with them, like what's going through your mind at that point as you're about to begin this like really important journey with them?
Yeah, I think number one is, do they feel connected? Do they feel safe? Do they have a friendship? Do they have someone to talk to? That's number one. The second thing is, what are their needs? How are they going to get their needs met in the day? So when we're talking about what do we teach, what do we teach for those students? It's survival skills, survival language. So like, can I go to the washroom, or I need a pencil, or I hurt my arm, or something like that. So we go through some thematic units. So behind me here, we were talking about the mittens, so we went into some of the winter vocabulary as well, and started talking about clothing and things like that. So just being able to express their needs, I think, is number one.
Talk about survival information. Like that's yeah. you need to know that, don't you, in January in Saskatoon? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think like kids want to be able to talk to their peers, right? So even some social skills, like how do I start talking to another kid? Like, what do I say on the playground if I want someone to play with me? It's not, do I push them? Like, what do I do? Right? It's like sometimes a little bit of teaching, because again, not everyone's schooling experience mimics that of a typical student in Saskatoon.
So then, when you get them for the 50 minutes in a day, I really love how the first thing you look at is like, how are they doing as individuals? Like, are they safe? Do they feel like they have a sense of community, as opposed to like, here are the A, B's, and C's that we have to do? But yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. But it sounds like it's holistic. The work that you're doing, it's not just getting them the language skills, but like helping, like almost care for them as a person.
I think so. I think when I look at students, I really feel like they're part of our community, right? They're our little family in a moment of time here, and I want to make sure that they feel supported and like that I believe in their success, because everyone, regardless of their background, has the future ahead of them, and let's get them ready for that. Yeah.
I really love that, Megan. That's very nice. Has that always been your own approach to teaching?
Yeah. I started my career teaching kindergarten, grade 1, and grade 3. And when you start with those little kids in your career, I think you see just how much wonder that they have for the world, and that really sparks joy in your teaching. I think it's everything is new and everything's exciting. And when I think about newcomers, regardless of how they've come to Canada, sometimes there's that excitement, but there's also fear, and that fear I think really takes hold when you aren't able to communicate as well as you'd like to be able to, right? So I think that safety is, and that feeling secure is really, really important in order to support learning.
Gosh, that's something you take for granted, that you're able to express fear, and yet for a lot of kids that might be a challenge. Oh, that's hard.
Yeah, I think I learn a lot from my students, and I learn how privileged that I have been in my life and where I was lucky to have been born, but also that they have homes and families and a history that's so much deeply a part of them that for some they may not be able to go back to. So really the care for these students and for their families is something that I hope is a community effort as well. We have a lot of great organizations working alongside our school division and the Catholic division as well to support families and newcomers. And I think that's an important piece to recognize too, is that we're not alone in this. When we're talking about supporting families, it's a community effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see community being built within your classroom, like with your groups that come in? Do you see that community being built?
That's a great question. I think my answer to that would be yes. There's always going to be those relationships that just aren't going to work, but for the most part, we have fun in here. We laugh. We play games. We learn from each other, and it's a great time. I love one of my favorite things to do is talking about words and asking students, like, how would you say this in your language? And because we have so many different languages, it's really, really fun. Everyone tries everyone else's words, and it's a great time. So yeah, it's a good team building just to have everyone have a voice. It's great.
What are all the different languages that you hear?
You're going to test me, but we have Swahili, Oromo, we have Tigrinya, we have Arabic, we have, oh my goodness, we've got Spanish in different forms. We have Bengali. Goodness, we have a lot.
Yeah.
So that's just the tip of the iceberg. But we have Karen, Mandarin, Ukrainian. Yes.
That's so. You must hear so many different things in your classroom.
Yeah, I love it too. Yeah.
Along the line with the theme of community, as like, do you see kids like throughout their I guess their time or career here at the school? Like, you might meet a kid in grade 1, but will you work with them throughout their time here?
Typically, yes. Yeah. So this is my 4th year at this school. So I have seen some students for 4 years, and it's great to see their growth. I did let some of the students go from the program this year, and they said, I'm out of EAL. I said, well, I think you're ready. So celebrating successes is a great part of that journey. So students typically are in EAL instruction between 4 to 5 years, sometimes longer depending on their first language literacy. So yeah, that's definitely kind of part of the excitement of being out of school for a while and seeing students grow and seeing their personalities come out. Because again, like when we have a personnel, we have a language at home, we have like that heart language, right? And then you're adding something onto it, and then you're kind of growing as a person as well as you're adding all these new things, and it's so exciting to see.
Their heart language.
Yeah.
Oh, can you tell me more about that? I've never heard it that way before, but yeah, tell me more.
To me, a heart language is the one that you use in your home. That's the one that connects you to your family and your community. It might be a mix of multiple languages depending on your family's background. But that's what connects you to your family, to your community, to the food, to the celebrations, to everything in your life. And I think it's really important to hold on to that. So when I talk about adding English, I think it's really important to recognize that students are coming with language, that they are coming with knowledge, and that shouldn't be forgotten or pushed aside. We need to celebrate those languages and traditions and bring them forward.
Oh my gosh, I just love that, because I could see how, like, not that it would happen here, but you want to instill the new language in, and but yet it's so important, you're right, to honor that original language, because it's spoken at home, it's part of who they are. Oh, that's fascinating.
Well, I think too, when we think about the landscape of Saskatchewan and the history of Canada as well, we have not the greatest history with maintaining languages for our Indigenous families and populations as well. So I think that's equally important, is to recognize that English is a colonizer's language, and that we do need to make efforts to teach and have students learn some of the Cree, Michif, Dene, Lakota, Dakota, all those kinds of languages, to be in the school, for them to recognize them, to hear them, that when we hear the Treaty 6 song, it's not just sounds, there are words to that song. Being very cognizant that we need to teach Indigenous languages, have them present in the school. I think that's equally as important. Yeah.
Thank you for expressing that, because I hadn't thought of it that way, but it's so true. And the heart language, that's gonna stick with me. Is it what are those days like when a student, like, quote unquote, graduates from your classroom? What's that like for you?
You know what? I think for me, just seeing how excited they are to know, like, I'm doing great. Like, I am doing great. And I think it's more of like, I'm ready, I can do this, more than like fireworks and, all that stuff. I think it's just a quiet recognition for themselves, like, I'm doing okay, And for me, it's exciting to tell them, I think you're going to be fine in the classroom without a little bit of my help, but you're always welcome back. I'm always here for you. Yeah.
How big a need is your position right now? Because I think I know, like, on the podcast too, we've talked about, like, the influx of yeah.
I came prepared.
Oh my gosh, Megan is grabbing a document.
I have numbers.
Oh, you have numbers. Okay,
do.
so how many more Megans do we need here in Saskatoon?
That's a great question. I don't think I'm going to answer this as part of the school division. I'll answer this from the numbers that are being put out from other people. So there's a language program through the University of Saskatchewan. They have a post-degree certificate in English as an additional language, and they have a document they put out that talks about, in 2010, the percentage of Saskatchewan K-12 students receiving EIL support was less than 1%. Today, that number is over 12%. So if you think about just that increase in that short amount of time. When we think about the time that it takes for students to learn English, where does that come from? Where do those teachers come from, and how long do we need those teachers for? So it represents, there's about a 35% increase, or more than 4,000 EIL learners since 2010 or so. And if our newcomer center is processing about, I think they have over 1,200 intakes already so far this year, K-12. Not all of those students receive instruction. The need is great. The Saskatchewan government also has the Immigrant Nominee Program, which in their growth plan, they said that they wanted to grow the population to 1.4 million by 2030, and that does include bringing in skilled workers. So I believe their targets were over 10,000 newcomers a year when they started that program in 2007. And they're getting close to that mark. So when we think about immigration, we think about the refugee displacement globally, and we think about the draw to Saskatchewan. Like, what do we have here? We have cost of living is, pretty decent. We have room to grow, and people are looking to Saskatchewan to come here. So, when we're looking at those trends, it's definitely pointing towards, maybe some more support in those areas. Yeah.
Thank you for the numbers. That's and because you hear anecdotally and from speaking with colleagues of yours as well. Like there's clearly a need, but thanks for breaking it down. When you look at that, does that what do you think of that as an EAL teacher? What goes through your head?
Well, the first thing I think about is how busy our Open Door and our different immigration partnerships, like Saskatoon Intercultural Association and International Women's Group and Global Gathering. All of those groups are quite busy with supporting newcomers. So when I think of how often I liaise with some of those organizations, we're quite busy. In the school setting, we definitely feel the pressure. Like there's more needs than ever, and not just language. When we think about the cost of living right now, like food and things like that, that access, that's a huge part of kids' day is just, am I fed? Am I taken care of? And I think across Saskatoon, that's a big thing as well. But we're definitely feeling like, yeah, we're busy. Our groups are full. We have to make tough decisions sometimes about who we see, because we just don't have the room sometimes to see everybody. We have a mandate to support refugee students or students with proficiency, that's a beginning proficiency, and then students who are A22 and above, so high intermediate to advanced. Sometimes we don't have room to see them for support, so then they're in the classroom. Yeah, it is, and I don't think it's easy for anyone to make those calls. I don't want to speak to the division, but it's what we're able to work with what we have. So kudos to all the teachers out there who are in class, and I know that they're feeling the strain of busy classrooms just with all of those different needs that they see in the class, and just know that it takes time and they're doing the best job that they can. Yeah.
Megan, you mentioned earlier that you started as a kindergarten teacher in grades 1 and 2. Why did you want to go down this route?
I actually, when I started teaching, was already doing classes to become an English language teacher. So I was taking night classes and studying at the time when I started teaching. So I was already planning on teaching English. And then an opportunity came with Saskatoon Public in 2009 to become an EAL teacher. So that year I taught kindergarten in the morning and English as an additional language in the afternoon between two schools. It was a crazy year.
You survived.
I survived. I don't know how. And then after that I was just doing EAL teaching after that. But I actually wanted to teach English abroad, and I never did go. My husband might have had something to do with that at the time. But I actually started looking at the immigration plan from the government when I was in university, just as out of interest. And I saw, wow, they have an immigration plan to bring in over 10,000 people a year. I'm like, that seems like we might need some English teachers for that. So then I thought maybe I'll get a job here teaching English.
Megan, that is incredible foresight. Like the fact that you did the research and put two and two together. When I was in the College of Education, I was not doing that at all. So well done to you.
Oh, maybe I'm just over analytical, but yeah.
Why do you love it so much?
That's a great question. I love working with families and helping them with their transition to Saskatoon, sharing all the wonderful things we have in our city. It's a great place to raise a family. I have 2 kids of my own, and for example, we just went to the Western Development Museum this weekend, and my kids had a blast. Just all the different things we have to do, Wanaskewin and the riverbank, and our summers are amazing. Getting outside, so many free programs, City of Saskatoon summer programs, those things, just helping them be integrated in the community and feeling like they belong. That's, to me, more important than teaching is welcoming.
It has been such a pleasure meeting you today. I know our mutual friend Shauna. She spoke so highly of you, and I can clearly see why. And I love, my biggest takeaway from this will be like the heart language, but it is also clear that you have a really, really big heart, and so your kiddos are very lucky to have you, Megan. Thanks for having me in your classroom today.
Well, thank you. You're welcome back anytime. And if you have any more questions, you feel free to talk to your teachers at your school, talk to your administrations. If you want to advocate for teachers, talk to your MLA.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.
You're listening to episode 5, season 7 of YXE Underground. I'm Eric Anderson, and this episode is supported by Rob Romvey and his team at RBC Dominion Securities in North Battleford. Follow and listen to YXE Underground wherever you find your favorite podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the YXE Underground website. And don't forget to follow YXE Underground on social media. Simply search YXE Underground on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Laura Jorgenson's path to becoming an EAL teacher here in Saskatoon was not a straight line. Her career started in the small southwest Saskatchewan community of Vanguard, and she has taught in communities in Manitoba, as well as Toronto and in Langenburg, Saskatchewan. But as you are about to hear, Laura has found her calling as a high school EAL teacher. She is a warm and kind person who is also really busy. Laura's mornings are spent at Tommy Douglas, working with students who range from 13 years old all the way up to 20, and then she works with international students at several Saskatoon high schools as part of the Saskatoon Public School Division's International Education Program. Now, I caught up with Laura at Evan Hardy Collegiate on a Friday afternoon in the school's library and started our conversation by asking what her typical day looks like.
In the mornings, I'm at Tommy Douglas, so I teach high school EAL teachers, or students, I should say. They range in age from 13 to close to 20 sometimes. I teach beginners, so I'm the person that when they first arrive in Canada, I get them. And in high school, there's credit classes, and then there's classes where we support them when they're a bit more advanced. So it's set up quite a bit different than the elementary system. And then in the afternoons, I travel around and do my international advising for students from all over the world.
I do want to get to your afternoon adventures, but can we focus on Tommy just for a second? So when you say beginners, like in my mind, I think of someone's journey with the English language starting at an early age, because that's how it was for me. And yet you're right, like you have 13, 14, 15-year-olds all the way up to 20, and they come to Saskatoon and they learn they begin to learn the language. Like how does that journey begin?
Well, the thing is, it's different for all of them. And some of the students I have never been to school. They have very little background in that. So they will come and it'll be teaching them how to do school. So, teaching them about homework, teaching them. Some of them would stand up when they wanted to talk to me. They didn't know that you needed to put up your hand. So things like that. And then some of them have been in the elementary system, but they've just come later, and they're just progressing a little bit slower, and they need to learn how to how to write a sentence. So yeah, they're all different. Yeah.
Wow. It's so much more than just the language skills, isn't it? Like it's
so much more.
Yeah. Did you know that when you first got into teaching English as an additional language?
No, I don't think I knew that it would be more, but I think I didn't realize the extent of it. And I think first and foremost, for a lot of these kids that I see, they are coming from war-torn countries or situations that are very difficult, and they need somebody that is almost like a caregiver at the school. Someone that they feel comfortable with and they can ask questions, because there's so many cultural differences, academic differences in terms of schooling. There's a lot, and so I think that I didn't realize how much of a mother figure I would become to some of these, which I love, but it's such an important job to kind of bring them in and say, okay, it's a safe place. And now that you feel comfortable, your learning can hopefully begin, because there's so much that they're overcoming. They're just incredible and so resilient.
How do you go about creating a safe space for the students?
I guess it's very simple. For me, I feel it's just like a smile, standing in the door and greeting them, giving them their space, because some of them take time to open up, not putting them on the spot. But typically in the beginner class, it's good to have a smaller class. So it's not, and they're all in the same situation. They're all learning kind of at the same level, hopefully, and so I think that helps a lot too. They feel safety amongst their peers. Not just with me, but the peers really helps, because they've all been in situations that we can't even get our heads around,
And yet, I'm sure, even though they're coming from different backgrounds, perhaps some shared experiences that would create a little bit of community, perhaps, in the classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of them have shared languages, shared cultural backgrounds, but a lot of shared experiences, for sure.
May I ask you some logistical questions? As a former teacher, I find this fascinating. So you go about creating this safe space, the safe classroom. I love that you greet them at the door. I think that goes a long way. So if a student, say a 15-year-old student in grade 9 or 10, comes to you for the first time, what are those first few days like? Like, what do you teach them, and how do you go about teaching them?
Well, for my classes, it's a lot of repetition, a lot of routine. So I put on the board a lot of exactly what we're going to do in English in very simplistic, words. I repeat it every day. We practice, asking them what the day is, what tomorrow is. So we do a routine. We ask what they did that evening, or what they will do. So we kind of just start from there, and then we see, how they're reading, how they're writing, give them little samples. We have a newcomer center here, and so that's very helpful, because every student goes there, and the people at the newcomer center downtown will assess them. And then we know, okay, this person should be in my class, and that helps a lot, because you get a sense of where they are. But sometimes it's nice to see for sure where they are and what you can move forward with. Yeah.
So you're not starting off kind of blind in a way. You sort of know where the kids are at.
Yes, and that's very helpful. And if they've come from elementary, we also can look and see as well. So we do know.
At the high school level then too, is it do they have a designated period where they spend time with you, or does it depend?
It's just like regular high school. So they get a credit for their direct instruction classes. So that's super helpful too. They will get a credit for all the language classes that they take. And that helps especially for grade 9, because if they're in grade 9, they don't get credits. But if they're just beginning, if they take my direct instruction English class and they pass, they'll get a credit. And then that allows them in the following years to be a little bit ahead, and then they can take classes in EAL where they don't get credit for extra help. Yeah.
So will you continue to teach the students as they continue through their high school career?
Partly, but the goal is for them to eventually move out into regular grade 10 English and graduate. So we try to move them through the beginner and the intermediate and the advanced English language classes, and then when we think they're ready, then they move on. Yeah, so some students will advance very quickly, and they might just go from my class to maybe one other EAL direct instruction and then out. Some might take a couple years to go through it, and they might take my class, several times. So it just depends. Yeah. But the goal ultimately is to get them out and graduate.
Okay. Thank you for explaining all that.
Yeah.
When you were working with these students, are the class sizes like big or small, and And are you able to really form relationships with these students?
Yes, absolutely. The classes are typically smaller, and that's strategic because when you're having students that are very beginning, not only learning the language but the culture, you have to do it in a smaller setting. Otherwise, it's not worthwhile. And then you, of course, learn a lot about them, and you really form relationships not only with them but with their families too, because the families are a big part of the equation in many of these students' journeys. Right? They are wanting their children to succeed in this new life. And yeah, so there's a lot of conversations with them and trying to help them as well in some cases.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, a lot of times the kids are almost sometimes caregivers for the parents because their English is better than their parents. And so they might ask me for help because their parents are filling out forms, and so I need to help them with that. Or they're trying to find a job and they need some help with that, or they're trying to phone some of the lines and they're saying to press 1 or 2, or there's a lot of things that the parents have trouble with, and so sometimes we have to do that as well. But yeah, it's very interesting and really rewarding.
Wow. What are some of the more rewarding parts of your job?
Well, I think when you see them graduate and walk across the stage and you know what they were like when they came in or their struggles that they've gone through, I think that's very rewarding. And for my job in my direct instruction class, it's very rewarding when I see them starting out not being able to read and then reading. Or, writing a sentence, at the end they're writing a paragraph. So you see a progression, which... I am an English teacher by trade, but I didn't see as much of a dramatic improvement. And so when you're teaching these students that are brand new to the language, you do see sometimes quite a dramatic shift. And in their speaking too. They come and you have really trouble communicating or they can't tell you things. And then at the end, they're just, it's like a different person. Wow. Yeah, so there's a lot of reward that way. Yeah,
I love that. I just remember you were talking about the speaking, and I remember living abroad in the Czech Republic for 1 year of university, and it was so hard not being able to talk to as many people as I was used to. You just sort of take that for granted. The language just brings so much commonality, but that must be so cool to know that, or to experience that relationship growing as their language skills grow. That must be so cool for you.
Yeah, it is absolutely amazing. Yeah, it's part of the reason I really love my job, because you do see that and you have those connections.
Yeah. You touched on something as a former English teacher too, and I remember teaching high school English and just sort of taking for granted that the students knew paragraph structure and where to put a comma and all those things, and yet when these students are coming to you, like it's back to the basics. And English is such a funny language, isn't it? Like it really is. There's so many little things. So how do you like nuts and bolts wise, like is it hard to teach English to a 14-year-old newcomer in Saskatoon?
Well, and again, they're individuals, right? Yeah. So some students, depending on their background and what they've come with in their toolkit, it's easier than others. They might have different letters, so they don't even have our alphabet, so there's that. So for some students, you're teaching them the alphabet, you're teaching them the sounds. For others, they're a little bit ahead in that way. But again, it's a lot of repetition. It's starting with words and pictures. It's getting to, understanding the sentence structure and just getting them to practice with each other, practicing listening. So we have kind of the 4 strands. We have reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And so we try to hit on that in every lesson and little steps, depending on the group, right?
When a student has I was going to say bad day, but not a bad day, but gets frustrated or flustered, what do you do?
What do I do? Well, I'll talk to them about it usually, after class or when they're working quietly, and just have a conversation with them. And they usually talk about the reason, and it could be anything. I mean, there's a lot going on in these kids' lives. A lot of them have extra jobs. Some of them, their families are just here with one parent, and the other one's at war. And so there's a lot of things that pop up during the day that you're not exactly certain why it is the way it is, but once you have a conversation, they're usually pretty open about it. Yeah, and you find out a lot of interesting and sometimes inspiring stories. Absolutely. So,
Does it take a while to earn a student's trust in a situation like this, or do you find that after a couple weeks they begin to let down their guard a little bit?
it doesn't take too long, but
Yeah.
again, that depends
Yeah.
because some kids have gone through a lot and they don't trust a lot. But usually it's not too long, and because it's a smaller setting and they're all sort of in the same situation, I find that they do open up a little bit more. Yeah, so it's not too long that they're telling stories, and they often share just with me. Like they'll just tell me what's happened or, what they went through. I don't find that they typically share in a big group setting.
Okay. Yeah. I think it speaks to your character and clearly your kindness, but also like your listening ability, that they trust you, that they can tell these stories to you.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. How long have you been teaching EAL at Tommy for?
Oh, at Tommy, it was 2019 that I moved to Tommy, but and then we had COVID, so that was something kind of thrown at us. So since 2019 there.
Okay.
But I was at Walter Murray before that. Yeah.
How have you seen your role as an EAL teacher change, even in the last 5 years? Because I just think of our city has changed so much with so many. It's more diverse, which I think is wonderful. But how has your job changed?
I think that the biggest thing I'm seeing is more students coming with a lack of education. So, and I think COVID had something to do with that. They were maybe perhaps in a war-torn area, and they moved, and they didn't get the schooling in the refugee camp. So then they don't have their skills in their first language. So I'm seeing a lot more of that, where they don't have their first language skills, and then they come here, and that's really difficult. That's a huge obstacle for them to overcome, because if you have some sort of education in your home country, it's much easier to just, put the pieces together and move forward in terms of language learning.
How do you, and I'm guessing you would play a role in helping to overcome that obstacles, but how do you do that?
How do I overcome their learning obstacles?
Well, just even the challenge of maybe not having that education in their first language. How do you and I'm sure it's not only you, it's a whole group of people.
It's very difficult because usually you can translate, or they'll understand the whole structure of language. So you have to go with the English, and you have to just go through the letters and show pictures, and just a lot of repetition and a lot of one-on-one, which we don't have a lot of time for, but that's why the smaller group is really beneficial, because there are a lot more students that I'm seeing like that. We also have support classes, so the kids can just work on different subjects. So in those classes, that's where I would be able to sit down with them and move around the classroom and see what they're working on, and maybe read with them, and do a lot more of that with them.
Okay, so you would actually go into an English classroom, or they come to you.
Me.
Okay.
It would be I guess like a resource class, but it's all EAL students, and so they don't get a credit for that, but they would definitely get a lot of help.
Yeah.
And that's where those type of students, we can kind of really focus on some of those basic skills.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Your job is very complex. There's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on, and it's wonderful, but there is a lot going on, and I guess with that, there's a lot of rewards as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know how many students you work with at Tommy now?
I know our school, we're working with them or monitoring, I think around 100 maybe. But in my classes, it's not that. So there'll be students we have several teachers. We have three teachers now. And so they each have classes. And then we have some students where we just check and make sure that they're doing okay. So they wouldn't come to us specifically. But we do have direct instruction and support classes where we do get these students and work one-on-one with them. Yeah.
So everything that we've just covered for like the last 16, 17 minutes, that's just your mornings at Tommy Douglas. There's a whole afternoon.
Yes.
What do you do in the afternoons, Laura?
In the afternoons, we have a SIE, which is Saskatoon International Education Program in Saskatoon. And that's where students come from, again, all over the world to our schools. And they are in the different high schools learning about Canadian culture and being part of our school system, usually for one semester or a full year, and some continue on. So they would need study permits to come. And then there's a lot of host families involved as well. So it's really interesting. And so I go to different high schools where these students are and just make sure that they are doing okay, that their timetable is okay, that they are feeling comfortable in their, the new country, and we put on different get-togethers, as a group so that they can meet the other students around the city. So so it's really good, and they will meet, and become friends with Canadian students and form sort of lifelong friendships. So so it's kind of the same, but yet different.
Yes, I was just about to ask, like, how is it different from your mornings?
Well, I'm not teaching them, right? I'm not, they're not coming to me in a class. It's much more one-on-one. Okay. So, they got some health cards today, so I have to go and meet with them and, explain what the health card, covers and make sure that they're okay in that aspect. And so it's more one-on-one, pulling them out if they're having trouble and they don't understand how things work, then I'll help them with that. I'll contact the teacher and just make sure that things are going okay. But their teachers, the one that's looking after them, I'm just sort of checking in on them and making sure that they're feeling comfortable and that things are okay in the big picture.
What is becoming clear to me is that you are very, very skilled at forming meaningful relationships with students from all corners of the world. I'm wondering in your years as a teacher, especially on the EAL side of things, like is there a student that comes to mind where, you mentioned the pride of watching a student graduate in high school and maybe seeing where they were to where they were or are now that they're able to graduate. But is there a student that comes to mind where you were like particularly proud of?
Yeah, I have a few of those. I have one that I can think of that came from a war-torn situation, and that student had witnessed his baby brother being killed right in front of him. And so he came to my classroom with a lot of trauma and could not read or write. And throughout the course but he really wanted to fit in. He was so happy to be here. He worked so hard. And I would say he progressed so quickly because he was just so open to learning. He felt comfortable. And he graduated, not within the timelines because most of my students don't. They take extra time. But he graduated and he's working in Saskatoon, and he was a real success story. There was another student that escaped a war situation as well and hid away, and him and his dad bought the services of an organization to get on a boat, and they were on this rickety boat. They ended up on this little island where there was a detention center, and that's where he learned English. And they were trying to, get out of this detention center. And he started writing music at that detention center. His family, him and his dad had gone there, and they were hoping to eventually be reunited with the rest of his mother and family. And they eventually, the family did make it to Canada, and so they got out of that detention center. And in the meantime, he'd learned English and was writing music and came to Canada and became like a rapper and a writer. And so, you know, stories like that where it's just such resilience, where you don't think you're going to survive, and the human spirit helps you through, and you really flourish. And so there's, you know, and it can be, you know, that's a really outstanding story, but there's just the simplicity of just being able to graduate. Like that, to me, coming to a high school setting and overcoming cultural differences, like even writing a test where they don't know what a backyard is or a deck, you know, the wording, overcoming all of that, learning the language and graduating is just like heroic, you know, like it's just so, I don't know if that's the right word, but it's just incredible to me. And so, yeah, those are two that I can think of, but there's numerous ones that, you know, will have a wonderful life and be, you know, contributing to society and kind and all those things that make them really wonderful to work with. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, those stories. I got goosebumps listening to that. I love that you use the word resilience because, I think so many of us here like take for granted the fact that we you know, school is part of our everyday life, and we can go to school and we can feel safe and comfortable, and there's not a lot of obstacles compared to so many other people in terms of just getting into a classroom and receiving an education. But I think in speaking with you and with speaking with Megan as well, this has been so eye-opening that it's not just about learning, you know, where to put that semicolon or how to, you know, structure a paragraph. It's so much more about like the student as a whole person.
Yeah.
Like, wow, the work that you guys do is just amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it is really interesting and really rewarding.
Are you, because we were talking before we hit record, you've had a very interesting career in terms of how you got to this point. Do you see yourself continuing in this role for a while?
I would love to, yeah. I think I'm lucky because at the end of almost every day, I think I just loved that day. Like I love my job. And I just know from teaching, you know, in other situations that sometimes wasn't the case. It's a tough job teaching. And I just feel so fortunate that I really love it. Yeah. And so I hope to, because I love it. And so, you know, here's hoping.
I hope so too. I have a feeling that people are very happy with the work that you do, and clearly your students, you know, love and trust you and feel comfortable in the environment that you've created. So thanks for taking some time to speak with me this afternoon. I look forward to one day seeing your classroom at Tommy. Yes. I know a person who teaches at Tommy, so she's my wife. So yeah, someday I will see your classroom, but it's clear you're doing amazing work. And so thanks for sharing it today.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
My thanks to Laura Jorgenson and Megan Chan for taking time out of their very busy schedules to speak with me on the podcast. You can learn more about the English as Additional Language programs offered by the Saskatoon Public School Division by visiting their website. This has been Season 7, Episode 5 of YXE Underground. My name is Eric Anderson. I host, produce, and edit this local independent podcast. You can listen to YXE Underground wherever you find your favorite podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, or on the website, YXEUnderground.com. Please feel free to leave a 5-star review if you like what you hear. You can follow YXE Underground on social media. Simply search YXE Underground on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. My thanks to Saskatoon's Danger Dynamite for creating and maintaining the website, and my thanks to my cousin Andrew Dixon for the original theme music. A big thank you to Rob Romvey and his team at RBC Dominion Securities in North Battleford for supporting this episode. If you are an avid listener of the podcast, then you will know that Rob and his team have supported many episodes. Rob Romvey is one of the most amazing, kind, generous people that you will ever meet, whether in Saskatoon or North Battleford or the planet. Rob is so kind and generous to his community, and I am so grateful for Rob and his team's continued support of the podcast. Rob, it means a lot. Thank you so much, and you are the best. And if you're looking for someone to manage your money and manage your investments, Rob and his team really are the best, so be sure to check them out. Before I go, I would like to acknowledge that these interviews were gathered on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. YXE Underground is a production of the Salthammer Production Company. My name is Eric Anderson. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon, Saskatoon.